All right, so I'm going to try to tie this together. Obviously, we've heard a lot this weekend about what it means to walk in Christ and how we carry ourselves as Christians, right? You hear Kit talking about what it is to actually be a man versus a male, you know what I mean? And what that actually looks like to what we have to do. You know, Jason's talking about setting goals. Shannon's talking about the heart and all these different aspects. So it's a complex thing. It's not like a cut and dry thing. There's a lot going on. So how do we actually achieve this? What practices do I put in my life to achieve this? And when Kit was talking about, you know, you can be a man, you're not a male, you have to make a decision to be a man kind of thing, right? There was certain things that I put together for the Full Spectrum Warrior program because he's given the example of the guy who went to the bar and just totally beat the crap out of the dude, being a professional fighter and then fighting some other dude and just going what we call excessive force on him, you know what I mean? The immaturity there is what I try to tell people in our classes, like, look, dude, I'm trying to build strategic thinkers. I'm not trying to build freaking meatheads that are just going to go out and go from level 1 to level 10 and have no mid-range and go shoot the wrong person because all they know is shoot fast. I'm not trying to build speed shooters who don't know how to think. So I put just as much effort and attention into having you make decisions on the range as I do you, probably more so than you shooting fast. I want you to shoot accurate, but if you guys have ever trained with me on the range, my main focus isn't shooting fast. You have your entire life to race the clock, and you'll never be happy enough. Look at all the people who die trying to break their own records doing the breath hold things. What's that? Free diving. Thank you. No one's satisfied. You're never going to be satisfied. You will never shoot fast enough. You will never be good enough. If you're truly hungry, you'll never be good enough. Right? So the logo of Full Spectrum Warrior, which is in the logo of the Protector Summit, to me it's not a logo, it's a symbol. And it's a symbol of a lifestyle. That's why our hashtag is FSW Lifestyle, right? Because this is how we live. And this supports, in my opinion, this is my philosophy on it, and I'm actually in the process of making this into a book to explain the philosophy in more detail. But the first sword, each sword represents an aspect of our life, a pillar, an aspect, or whatever. Originally, this was a wheel and these were spokes. And at the end of the day, you would judge each area of your life of your growth as a spoke on a wheel. And if you rolled the wheel, how would that wheel roll? Ka-clunk, ka-clunk, you know, which aspects are we dropping the ball in our life, right? Well, the wheel didn't look really cool in a diagram, so we made it into a circle of swords and adjusted a few things, and I think it worked out better. So the first aspect, I'm not going to go super deep into these, right? Because it's kind of almost, you know, going back on and just reassessing everything that we've already covered this weekend. The first sword, and these aren't in any specific order, this is just the way I feel it's easy to communicate. The first sword is our health and diet. There's 12 swords in the symbol, right? And then we see a crosshair or a cross. I'll get to that at the end. So the first sword, one, is health and diet. Why is it important to be healthy? I can function at my best ability. If I'm unhealthy, right? You want to get to be strong. You want to do this, that. You want other men to respect you, right? What is a sign of being overweight? Lack of discipline. You look at that and you see lack of discipline. Whether you want to be judgmental or not, you can't fucking help it. You walk into a room, I'm 165 pounds. You don't think I know when I walk into a room, guys go, well, he's fit. I could probably take him. He's small. Right? I have to compensate for that with training. Because if I don't know how to fight, I'm going to get ragdolled. And I've been in that position before with a really big dude, and he picked me up, and he literally slammed me into the wall and slammed me into the wall. And luckily, he made one error, and I was able to change the tempo of the fight and cave his face in. But like the fact of the matter is, we look and judge. You look at a big dude, and he's huge, and what do you assume? He could probably kick my ass because he's got muscle, right? You look at a dude who's overweight and you go, they're probably lazy and undisciplined. Whether we like to think that we do that or not, we do. We judge and we assess.
Assess. That's the word.
Assess. Okay? I assess and I make a preconceived, we do this naturally. I look at a situation and I do a threat assessment. Does this seem dangerous or not? Could I win that or not? Is this the right direction? You know what I mean? Like, we do this all the time. So in this, not only is our health important for us as an individual, so we have optimum performance, it affects how we communicate and are viewed and our ability to work with other people based on them and their assessment of us, right? Based on what we show them, with our outer figure. You know what I mean? And it's not something that I can't get past, but I make it a lot more work for myself to then have to prove to them that I can hold my own. Does that make sense? So then we go into the second one, which is movement and strength. I don't really go into this as like necessarily fitness because I look at movement as the standard. Can I move long distances over time? How fast can I do so? Can I move my body weight? Can I move someone else's body weight? Can I move heavy things? Can I move light things lots of times, right? It's all movement. What is my resistance to my movement? So if I don't handle sword number 1 effectively, how effective can sword number 2 be? It won't be. Maybe if I'm doing a strongman competition or something like that, and I just want mass so I can lift really heavy things, but that doesn't help me in a broad spectrum of how effective is my movement. So our movement and strength is a direct relation to our health and diet. They're attached to each other. We go into our third sword, okay? I want to be dangerous. Who's heard that little audio clip of like you should be a dangerous man kind of thing, right? George P. Yeah. So I agree with him. We should be dangerous. I need to be able to fight. Can I be a good fighter if I can't move? Can I be a good fighter if I have shit health? No, probably not past 30 seconds. So I need to be dangerous. I need to move. To move, I need to be healthy. Also, what happens when I'm a dangerous fighter, when I have some values behind me, what happens is this actually builds my confidence as a man. I can be less childish with more confidence. The less confidence I have, I tend to overcompensate, right, and lash out because of my lack of confidence, right? The tracking that. So we can go way deep into that topic alone, which we don't have the time for today, but that ties right into what Kit was talking about with the man shit, right? This is where we start getting into, am I immature or am I being a male or a man from here on out, really? Those first parts, those are daily habits, as Jason was talking about, right? Now we come into number 4.
Sorry, before you go to 4, how do you explain maturity to someone who doesn't understand the concept?
That comes into, I would say maturity is really where whoever said before, I couldn't see because I was in the front row, when we talked about self-control and responsibility. So responsibility really is maturity. And taking ownership of your actions and stop blaming others for the results that you're seeing in your life, that really ties into maturity. I'm standing right here based on the decisions I made. And I can blame everyone in the world that I want once I'm past a child, right? And I realize that I can't help where I was born and the family I was born into is what I was born into. But once I get to the point where I can start making decisions on my own and I start, little kids, they want to be able to make all the decisions, but they don't want to own it. You know what I mean? So when you start getting to that point, until you're ready to own the decisions that you make, you're not really mature yet. And that's one of the things that I think is a primary factor. I mean, there's lots of factors to it, but I would say that for me, just off the cuff, taking the question, I would say taking responsibility would be a big one. Jason, you want to?
One of the things that I do is I run a 3-tier system. I explain it, then I give them examples according to their life, and that way they can better understand, like, what do you do for a living? And then we can give them some examples. And then, if you spend enough time with them, I show them, like you just said, through action. Those are the 3 tiers of life. That's realistically the only way that you can really reach people. Explaining, showing it to them, or through their own life or yours with examples, and walking it out.
Yeah. And I would say to add on to that, like that's a great point. And then you could follow up on it with accountability. So again, maturity, you're taking responsibility for their own actions, but then also like Kit was saying, your word is I shouldn't have to say, that was awesome. He's like, I shouldn't have to say I promise. You know what I mean? Like when we were doing dog training, I remember the guy who was coaching me when I was learning how to work dogs, and he goes, if you say plutz, which is lay down, and then you'll be standing there talking, and when I go to walk away, the dog has a tendency to get up and follow you. He said, but if the dog truly understands your command, and it was a command, not a suggestion, if I move, should the dog follow, or what was the command? People would be like, stay, or they go, wait, and they go, well, how can the dog move if it's in a plutz? So why are we double speaking things? So I think that's a really good point. And an accountability of it, hey, I'm going to explain something to you. I'm going to show you, right? And then we can talk about it. And now let me see what you do with that. Let's see if your word is what you say it is. Let me see if you can now be accountable, because being accountable falls under being responsible, right? So now we jump into the next one. The fourth one is being a student and being a leader. We have to be a student before we can be a leader. But the reason why I have both of these under this topic is I can still lead from whatever position I'm in. And how can I do that? Being the example. I'm always leading by being the example. I don't have to be in charge to be a leader. I can be a student and still be a leader. Does that make sense? And I can be a leader and still be a student. When I'm standing on the range, I learn every single time I have a student on the range. I learn something new. Everyone moves a different way. Everyone presents a new problem. And it challenges me to try to problem solve and figure out, how do I do this? Or people come with some technique that I've never seen before, and I have to be willing to be open-minded to learn something from one of my students, because maybe they're working in an environment that I've never worked in before. You know what I mean? Like you go to a different part of the world, the construction's different, the tools are different, the culture's different. Maybe what I was teaching doesn't apply in that environment. And maybe it's time for me to learn from the people who've been working into that environment, take that information, and maybe we can problem solve new techniques for that situation or for what they are encountering. Does that make sense? Right? But I will always want to be a student, and I always want to be a leader, and I can do those at the same time. What's dangerous is when you're a student and you think it doesn't matter because you're not the one in charge. That is going to make you act immature. The other flip side of that is if you're a leader and you think you have nothing left to learn because you're in charge, well, now you have no more growth. It's actually counterproductive. You're probably going to be a douchebag, right? So go to 5, right? Technical skills for whatever it is. Barrett talked about that. You're going to train, not try. Whatever my job is, whatever my technical skill is for my job, I'm going to be the best at it as I can be, right? You don't want to be the dude who's a firefighter and doesn't know how to work the equipment on the truck. You know what I mean? In the SEAL teams, you have a primary job, but you still need to know everyone else's job. But when it comes to your primary job, you better know that one. So I can be proficient in the areas that are not of my responsibility, but it's still good to know, so if someone gets hurt or whatever, I can cover for them, right? But if it's your job to be on if I'm a comms guy, which I'm not, so I know the basics of setting up radios enough to get us by, but I don't know all the ins and outs. But if I go to the comms guy, he better have the answers. And if he doesn't have the answers, he better know how to find them, you know what I mean? But you want to be in whatever your technical skill is, whatever your trade is, you want to learn that to your best ability. So then we go into 6 would be our attitude. Our attitude, right, as we kicked all the weekend off, right? I'm not running, I'm chasing, right? This wasn't punishment out there, this was opportunity. right? What is the attitude that I walk into? Am I looking for what can I learn from this experience? How can I gain and grow from this experience, whether it's good or bad? Who learns more from bad experiences? A lot of us, right? You learn more when you get punched in the face or when you throw a good punch. Yeah, you're like, oh shit, I'm not going to let that happen again. You know, I need to change my game plan because that's not working. You know what I mean? So the attitude of this, of whenever I approach one of these situations is, I'm here, I got to be careful with my words because I'm going to jump into the next topic. But, right, I'm here with a positive attitude. I'm here to put out. If I have a skill, if I'm going to do something, right, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm going to show up here. I'm going to learn. I'm going to lead, right? And, you know, I'm going to be dangerous. I'm going to be fit. I'm going to be strong. And I'm going to back it up with my health. You know what I mean? This attitude that you have, right, is not sulking. It's positive. And I'm careful with saying, I don't like to just put the word positive because sometimes my attitude is angry. And I've accomplished a lot of things. I don't want to say anger because it comes necessarily from like a heart space, right? But there's a lot of things that I've learned through being violent. Maybe angry, maybe frustrated. Who is getting mad at that fucking log? You know what I mean? It's an inanimate object, but who is feeling some different emotions through that? It's okay. We're emotional creatures, right? So it's not always positive, right? So, but the attitude is that I'm in the right place at the right time. You know what I mean? And there's always something to learn and gain from this. What am I gaining from this situation that's happening in my life? I'll ask myself that sometimes with different relationships. Not all relationships in my life have gone right. And it's like, what was I supposed to learn? I look at it, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent, but I look at my life like a book with chapters. That person was in my life for that chapter, for that time frame. What was I supposed to gain out of that chapter? And if I have a shit attitude, which I've had in the past, right? You might find yourself sulking or pity and all that stuff, right? The lion doesn't care about your feelings. But what you come to realize is what's happening in that chapter might be setting the stage for something that's further on in the book and you don't know it. And when you go read the book, that new chapter way down the line, you're like, oh my gosh, that's referencing what happened all the way back here in the beginning of the book. You know what I mean? So don't second guess the plan. You know what I mean? Don't doubt the plan. You haven't got to the end of the book yet, right? So the attitude supports that. So I don't get down on that. I just go, what is it that I'm supposed to learn right now? And maybe I have to be patient because maybe I don't have enough perspective to even understand what it is that I'm going through. I need these other years of circumstances and experiences so that I can understand what I'm experiencing right now. That was a big tangent. Anyway, so carrying on. The next one, 7, is work ethic. My attitude is going to determine my work ethic. If I have a shit attitude, you think I'm going to work well? Probably not. So my work ethic, I don't really need to go into that, but doing what you do to the best of your ability. You know what I mean? And doing it with a good attitude, doing it with an aggressive attitude, doing it with an attitude that's going to make you productive. If you finish up, right, we were carrying the logs, when you were done and the other guys weren't, what'd you do? Went back and helped. Okay? The job's not done until everything's done. 8, vision and goal setting. How do you know where you're going if you have no idea of where you're going? Are you being busy or are you being productive? You know what I mean? Like you can do a lot of work, but is it being productive? It's just a lot of busy time, right? So without having a vision, right? I need to have a vision to understand what I want. I need to have a vision to understand where am I planning on going. My goals are the incremental process of how I get and make my vision come from an idea to a tangible thing. You know what I mean? When we came out here, this was like a completely overgrown. We probably pulled 100 pine trees alone out of this one field right here. This was completely overgrown. It didn't look like this. You know what I mean? And when I walked out here, I had a vision for this specifically, right? And some of the vision was changed just based on the layout of the land, so it wasn't exact science, right, from on paper to whatever. But it's like we see it. And then everyone else thinks you're crazy. You know what I mean? But then you set up incremental goals and you make it happen, and we're not done, right? This is just an example because you guys are here right now. This could be whatever. But I have to see it first, and then I have to make it come to life. So vision and goal setting. 9 is communication skills and teamwork. So I put these two together because a lot of people overlook communication skills. And again, we can be busy or we can be productive. And I hear people a lot of times going, I'm not going to change for you, or you ever hear all that stuff like, if you don't like me for who I am now, then you just, I'm not going to change. You know what I mean? Do you think that's a good attitude to have? No, you've put yourself at a dead-end road. At the same time, and from a communication standpoint, there's different books on this, like the 5 love languages, and they have all this kind of stuff. But those books, one of the things that's interesting, if you look into that from a communication standpoint, is who's heard the saying like treat others how you would like to be treated, right? And there's some truth to that. But at the same time, if we're talking about communication, is I have to communicate to you, right, how you can best understand it. And if I'm talking to you in English and you don't speak English, I could say the most best shit you've ever heard, and all you're hearing is blah, 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 blah. It doesn't make any sense. And then I think you're stupid because you don't understand what I'm saying. And I get frustrated because you don't understand what I'm saying, so you must be stupid, right? Because they don't speak my language. So how many times in our homes, in our lives with the people like in our house or people that we work with, right, are we just communicating wrong? And now we're not effective in these other areas from how can we even have teamwork if we can't communicate first? You know what I mean? So just to give an example, I've heard it explained like this. I forget what the name of it is, but this dude used colors as an example. And it's just a super simple thing. I'll give you a Cliff Note version, but you can just kind of think on it, right? He said there's 4 colors. You got green, yellow, blue, and red. And the green people are your like engineers. They want all the details. They're very detail-oriented people, etc., right? The yellow is like the mother hen. They want to take care of everybody, right? They want to help everyone, and they always go out of their way to put everyone else before them. The blue would be someone who's like, they just want to be part of the party. They want to be where all the people are. They love excitement. They love getting together. They're the night owls, and they just want to be with everybody else. They love being super social. And the red are the people who want to be the leaders, like a type A personality. They want to be in charge of everything. They want to be barking orders and all that stuff. So let's say, for example, we're just talking about the event because it's relative because we're here. If I said to the green, right, oh man, this is going to be awesome. There's going to be so many people there. We got dudes coming in from all over the country, blah, blah, blah. Do you think they are excited? No. Do you think if they came to the event, they would have had a good experience? Probably, but I'm communicating it to them wrong. Who am I talking to when I say that? Right? I'm talking to the blue. So maybe I'm a blue, so I'm going to talk to you how I communicate. So I'm going to talk blue to you. I love all the dudes being there. I just want to be a part of it. This is awesome. The team event was great. We were carrying logs, and I was with my teammates, and we were carrying this thing. It was sick, right? And these guys, the engineers, are like, that sounds stupid. The log sounds like it's going to hurt someone's back. I don't think I want to carry logs. Logs, you know what I mean? Right? So I'm speaking blue to a green, and then I get frustrated because I don't get the results that I want. But if I'm trying to lead a group, if I'm trying to be part of a group and a team, it's not about me. It's about what does the team need. So I have to figure out how to communicate in a way. I'm not being fake. I'm not telling them bullshit just to convince them and sell them on something, right? And this isn't a sales pitch for you guys to sell next year's course, right? I'm just using this as an example because we're here, right? And we're all on the same page because we're all here right now. Does that make sense mentally? So I get frustrated because I'm not getting the result or getting the response from them because they're not as excited about it as I am. You know what I mean? So if I'm talking to a blue, maybe I say something like that. If I'm talking to a yellow, how would I probably describe this event? Yeah, well, man, last year I was there and there was people who came with their fathers and sons, and the family was just tighter, and man, this is helping people in this part of their life, and this one person was really grew in this area of their life, and you know what I mean, and we were praying for these people's family members and things that were happening, and man, it was really making a personal impact, and they're like, I want to help people. That's what I want to, you know what I mean? So you get what I'm saying? Like the way I would talk to them about the specific job, right? So maybe this is your kids, So instead of saying, hey, because I said so, we're going to go do this because I said so. And is that right? Yeah, as an adult, that's right. But maybe the communication would get resistance if I said, hey man, based on me understanding the personality type of my child or my spouse or my coworker or whatever, if I'm not trying to tell them what it is, because maybe I'm a red, and I'm like, well, I'm in charge, so you do what I say because I'm the one in charge. It's as simple as that. Instead, I go, well, I'm a red, but I understand that they're, a green, and I'm like, hey, man, we're going to go do this, but I'll tell you what, they're going to have, how you wondered that one thing, dude, they're really going to break this down, and they're going to tell you everything you need to know. You're going to have more details on this than you could even imagine. And they're like, oh, I love details. I love breakdowns. I love freaking pie charts and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So again, in this now helps us be more effective in our teamwork, especially from a leadership position, right? Not that I have to coddle people, but I have to make sure my communication's correct. You have a radio on the old school dial radios. That radio is getting every single station right now. They're all right here. But if I don't dial it right, I get static, 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 and then boom, there's the station. Does that make sense? The station was there the whole time. I didn't have it dialed in. So I need to be effective, right? There was a saying I heard, you can be right or you can be effective. Which one you want to be? I remember I used to have this conversation with a few other people who were in my life all the time because they would get frustrated. They just wanted to be right all the time. I'm like, I get it. And I want to be right too. But more so than being right, I want to be effective because I'm trying to get results. It's not about me, it's about the results. It's not about me, it's about growing the company. So we need to be effective. Okay? So then we go from that into 10. Shifting gears just a little bit, we come into situational awareness. Right? If I'm going to lead, if I'm going to build a team and all this kind of stuff, situational awareness is really important. Maybe situational awareness is reading the team, reading the people. Maybe situation awareness as far as on a job site or something like that is seeing things that are dangerous. Maybe situational awareness is, am I taking my family into a dangerous area of the town, right? And all that kind of stuff. And then am I actually prepared? And making those decisions, guiding our people to the right areas of our lives. Maybe situational awareness is starting to see where sin is creeping into my life and acknowledging that there's an attack coming. You know what I mean? It's not just a kinetic tactical thing. This is, am I aware of the bigger picture of the things that are going on around me, right? And am I taking us and am I doing the proper precautions and whatnot to handle those areas that are coming up? 11 is going to be our convictions and integrity. So our convictions are going to guide us and our integrity is going to hold us accountable. Right? Integrity was always explained to us in the SEAL teams as doing the right thing when no one's looking. I'm not sure if that's an exact Webster Dictionary definition, but integrity. Am I close? Okay, cool. All right, that's how it's always been explained to me. So my integrity and my convictions. What is it that is true to you? What are the things that are non-negotiable in your life? And do you cave into those based on peer pressure? Or are you worried about what others think? You know what I mean? Like, for me, I don't drink. I've caught so much shit my entire life for not drinking. And after all the years of me not drinking and catching a bunch of shit, later on people respected me for it. You know what I mean? And they're like, I still can't believe you don't fucking drink. And I'm like, don't worry, I do plenty of other stupid stuff. It's fine. You know what I mean? But that was just something that to me was important, and I stuck with it. And now at this point, do I think it would be an issue in my life? Probably not, but I went this long. What good would come of me starting now? I can only see negative things coming from it. And if it's drinking is anything like my fucking Monster situation, I'd be a raging alcoholic most likely. So I stay, whatever my convictions are, you know? And we all have different convictions. And I'm sure as Christians, right, a lot of those convictions we can find what that guidelines of those should be coming from, you know, our Bible. And then the integrity is do I follow up on that? And when no one's looking, do I hold myself accountable? You know, one of the things I like what Kit said was with the integrity thing is he'll tell his wife, and then now he's made it, so he has to be accountable. And I'll do the similar stuff. I might do that with my friends. I might do that with social media posts. I might do that with my students. Maybe I just do it with myself. You know what I mean? But when no one's looking, are you still doing the right thing? And then 12 is going to be our strategic thinking and finances. And I put those together because we have to have a strategy. We have to be good thinkers, right? Finances come into that. It's one aspect of it. But if we're looking at being a man and we're looking at being a protector, how important do you think it is to our spouse, to a woman, that we have our finances under control? It's pretty important, right? Because if I can't handle that, I can't handle other things. Do you know that if you don't have your finances in order, you can't get a top secret security clearance? That's one of the things they check is your credit score. They check what your finances are, how much debt do you have, and why do you think that is?
You can't handle that. You can't handle
Yeah. One is I can be bought. I'm desperate. I'm untrustworthy because I'm desperate. Because I'm in a position to where I need money. But the other thing is just like being like, you know, not to, you know, make anyone feel bad, but just like if I'm overweight, you would go, they're undisciplined when it comes to food and exercise. If I am in debt, right, and I don't have control of my finances, I'm undisciplined in my decision making when it comes to stuff like that. Maybe it's gambling, maybe it's like, you know, buying things just to look cool, right? It could be, you know, I need to have the new, latest, greatest, whatever, so I can fit in with my friends, you know what I mean? And whatever, there's a lot of different reasons of how we get into bad financial situations, right? And if we go back to, well, are you being productive or are you just being busy? Maybe you work really hard, but maybe you're working really hard at the wrong thing, right? And if you put the same time and energy into a different job or venture, it would have a bigger return, right? But again, we're doing Cliff Notes today. There's entire books on finances, you know what I mean? So we're just saying that this is an area that's important for us to understand. And this goes intact, not necessarily the same exact thing, but the same mindset for us to have solid finances, for the strategy for our life. Strategic thinking would cover finances, but strategic thinking is a much broader spectrum topic which we could apply to basically anything that we're trying to do, right? But the thing with strategic thinking, right, what does that say in its own title? Strategy, right? So with a strategy, when we come back to goal setting, how many people set goals like, I want to lose 10 pounds? Okay, well, what's your strategy? We set goals, but do we develop strategies for those goals in many cases? Probably not. That's why people don't reach them. You know what I mean? So what are the strategies for my life? What are the strategies that I'm doing, whatever it is that my vision is, right? What is the strategy for my daily, you know, my daily relationships? You know, John and I were talking yesterday, and, you know, he had some people that were reaching out to him to try to, you know, throw business ideas back and forth, and his wife was like, what's the purpose behind that? And that goes right back into, dude, what's the strategy behind this? Is this a productive thing? And once they started looking at it and discussing, there was no real strategy there. And once they started looking at the strategy, they go, you know what? This isn't a business venture that we want to take part in. It doesn't make sense. But on a surface level, it was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And there's a lot of things that we just take on because it sounds cool, it sounds fun. But when in the big thing, we want to be making decisions. We don't want to make reactions. We just want to jump on the grenade, or we just don't want to, go do stuff. That was one of the things that I had to step back from, for me personally. I was getting pulled I was still pulled in a lot of directions, but there was a point a few years ago where I was literally being pulled in so many directions. One of my good friends and mentors, like I was saying the other day, I have people who mentor me in different aspects of my life. This is one of like my business coaches. And he's got a multi-million-dollar roofing company, so even though I'm not in the roofing business, there's certain key principles that still apply. So when I listen to him talk about stuff, I just shut up and listen. And he was like, dude, you're burning the candle at all these different ends. He's like, instead of trying to help every single one of these charities, why don't you just go make $1 million instead of fundraising, riding bikes around the world and doing all this stupid stuff? Not stupid, but that's my words, right? He was just like, instead of being so stretched out, he's like, what is the end game with this? He's like, you're racing around trying to raise money from everyone else, and you're neglecting your own family, you're neglecting your own business, all this kind of stuff. You're dropping the ball. Why don't you just go make $1 million and go donate 500,000 instead of doing all this stuff? Why don't you go win first and then keep winning, and then you can fund whatever charity you want because you're making so much money you don't know what to do with it. You're just going to give it to charity. Does that make sense? Yep. That's a strategy. I was being busy, and busy was super frustrating. And busy was super strenuous on all the people around me. Does that make sense? Like, dude, slow down. What are you doing? Every time we think we've arrived, you got some new thing on the plate and we haven't finished the last thing, right? So we want to have strategy there. So these are the things that we talk about balancing. That's what I was saying originally. It was like the wheel. If we want to look at it like swords, we can look at it. What type of sword are you bringing to the table in that area of your life? You bringing a little dagger, pocket knife, or you bringing a real sword? You know what I mean? Are you putting the work in? Is that sword super sharp because it's never been used? Or are you putting the work in that area and it's all banged up and it's worn and tethered? Does that make sense? So now coming into the final parts of this, right? we look at the symbol, and because we're basically known as a shooting company, what does that look like at like a glance? It looks like a crosshair, right? Like a reticle with swords. Yeah, because that's cool. That makes sense in the shooting world. Right? But that's just the surface level thing of what we're doing here, right? That's why we're here this weekend. This actually represents the cross, and the cross is the cornerstone of everything we do. Going back to what Kit said about the meathead dude who has no self-discipline and goes and gets in the fight at the bar and totally goes, excessive force on that dude, right? What's the difference between being a bunch of meatheads who take this technical knowledge, these skill sets for war and for fighting, and go use them in the wrong context? What's the difference of that? Self-control. And where does our self-control come from? Discipline, but bigger than that. I just showed you what it is. The cross, right? So we're warriors in the garden kind of thing, but the Christian principles and God is our guiding compass. I don't make up the rules of what the rules are in my life. If I did, which rules would I choose? The ones I like. You know what I mean? But that's why I always laugh when people are like, yeah, I take a little bit from every religion. I'm like, so you just do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. I'm not saying don't be well-versed, but if you pick and choose the things from each religion, you're only going to pick and choose the things you like. The things we need are not the things we like, they're the things we need. So every time I look at that, it challenges me, and I go, I'm trying to grow in these areas, but what's guiding the decisions in these areas? Right? What guides the decisions in those areas, and I'm not a pastor, I don't know as much as Barrett and Shannon and some of these other guys, Jason, but I know the cliff notes and I know the general principles, and when I look into that, I can't just rattle off the page number and the scripture quotes. That's not me. That's why I didn't talk as much on all that stuff. But I do know the guiding principles, right? And those guiding principles are what guide my ethics and my decision making on those other 12 swords. Does that make sense? But at the end of the day, that is the thing that is the cornerstone and the most important part. If we're going to get one thing right, that is the part that needs to be right. Those other parts, in my opinion, are the guiding principles on how do we, on a daily basis, continue to grow in what I would call a full spectrum warrior lifestyle. Does that make sense? So I just want you to know that, because that's why I put on this event. And that's why I invite in all these other coaches, because the middle part is the most important part of this whole thing to me, right? But that's not necessarily what everyone comes to me for coaching, but that's what I want to share with them, right? But all I can do is, like, as Kit said, said, hey, you might be the only Bible that anyone's ever seen. You might be the only example of a man that anyone's ever seen. Okay. Well, there's people who are also really good examples of that, who know more about different areas of this than I do. So let's bring them together and let's have a more impactful experience so that we can grow the most important part and we can build on the foundation. And then this is all this stuff that's just the daily choices. And again, I'm not saying that this is the truth. You know what I mean? This is just my perspective on it. This is my practice, and this is why, I have it the way it is. Cool? So I just want you to know that and understand what you're a part of. And when you wear that shirt, which I hope you do, and I hope you wear it with pride, and I hope you live up to it. None of us are perfect, but it's a guide. It's a guide. You know what I mean? But you're not wearing a company logo. It's a lifestyle.